In the heart of ancient Italy, where the winds whispered through the hills and the Tiber River wound its way through the land, a new city was struggling to survive. Rome, barely more than a collection of huts and dreams, faced a desperate battle for existence. The Romans, led by their founder Romulus, were a people consumed by a singular goal: to transform their fledgling settlement into a thriving city-state. But the early Romans were not alone in their struggle. The challenges they faced were as relentless as the summer heat that scorched the land. Their city was small and vulnerable, and their numbers were insufficient to protect their growing ambitions. Every day was a fight against the odds, a fight to build a future from the rubble of their humble beginnings. In this struggle, one pressing need loomed larger than the rest: the need for women. The early Romans knew that without women, their city had no future. A city without families, without women to bear children and ensure the continuation of the Roman line, was a city destined to fade into obscurity. This was not just a matter of social convention, it was a matter of survival. Romulus and his fellow founders understood this truth deeply. Their own strength and determination could only go so far. They needed the presence of women to anchor their society, to bring life and hope to their fledgling community. The stark reality was clear: if they could not find wives for their men, their city would crumble, its walls growing silent as its people dwindled. Desperation drove them to a drastic solution. In their eyes, the only way to secure their future was to take matters into their own hands. And so, the plan was set into motion. With a mixture of boldness and recklessness, Romulus devised a scheme that would change the course of their history. He decided to abduct women from a neighboring tribe, the Sabines, in a desperate bid to provide wives for his people. The festival, meant to celebrate the gods and foster goodwill, was turned into a stage for this audacious act. As the festivities reached their peak, when laughter and music filled the air, the Romans struck. They seized the Sabine women in a shocking display of force, taking them from their homes and families. The anguish of the Sabine families was palpable. The cries of mothers and fathers, the bewildered sobs of daughters torn from their lives, filled the night air. The Romans had achieved their goal, but they had also unleashed a storm of grief and rage. The Sabine women, now prisoners in a city they had never known, faced a future that was both uncertain and terrifying. Yet, amidst this chaos, something profound began to emerge. The Sabine women, though initially victims of this forceful act, began to shape the future of Rome in ways no one could have anticipated. They found themselves in a new world where survival was not just about physical strength, but also about building bonds and finding a place in a society that had been built on their own abduction. These women, in their new roles, began to weave their lives into the fabric of Roman society. Their presence, once the result of a desperate act, became a crucial part of the city's survival and growth. They bore children, nurtured families, and helped transform Rome from a struggling outpost into a bustling city. The very women who had been taken against their will became integral to the city's future, their pain and resilience contributing to Rome's foundation. The story of the Sabine women is not just a tale of abduction, but a poignant reminder of the human cost of survival and growth. It is a testament to how even the most harrowing of circumstances can lead to unexpected outcomes, shaping the destiny of a people in ways that defy the initial intentions of their actions. On a quiet night, under the watchful eyes of the ancient stars, a legend was born that would forever shape the course of history. In the heart of a wild and untamed land, two tiny figures lay cradled in the warmth of a she-wolf's embrace. Romulus and Remus, twin brothers with a destiny that would defy the odds, were the first whispers of what would become the great city of Rome. The tale of Romulus and Remus is more than a story of survival and ambition. It is a heartbeat that pulses through the veins of Roman culture. The legend begins with a tragedy, a tale of betrayal and a perilous journey that leads to the birth of a city. Abandoned as infants and left to the mercy of the elements, the twins were saved by the kindness of a wolf who nurtured them, feeding them with her milk and keeping them safe from harm. As they grew, the city of Rome was not yet a glimmer in their eyes, but their courage and the fierce love of their protectress set the stage for something monumental. The twins were eventually discovered by a shepherd and raised as his own. They grew strong, their bond unbreakable, and their spirits fueled by a fierce desire to reclaim their heritage and forge their own path. The legend reaches its heart-wrenching climax when Romulus and Remus, now young men, set out to establish a city of their own. They were driven by a vision, a dream of a place where they could build a legacy, not just for themselves, but for generations to come. The land they chose was rich with promise, a fertile valley between the hills of Palatine and Aventine. But even as their dream took shape, their bond was tested in the most brutal way. The brothers, once inseparable, found themselves at odds over where their new city should rise. A bitter argument turned into a tragic confrontation. Romulus, determined and unyielding, emerged victorious, but at a devastating cost. In an act that would echo through history, he killed his brother Remus, claiming the city and naming it Rome after himself. The death of Remus cast a long shadow over Rome's beginnings, but it also marked the birth of a city destined for greatness. Romulus's victory was not just a personal triumph, but a symbol of Rome's resilience and strength. His reign as the first king of Rome was marked by bold decisions and ambitious projects. He organized the city's people into tribes, established its first institutions, and began to shape Rome's character and values. The story of Romulus and Remus is more than a foundation myth, it is a window into the soul of ancient Rome. Their legend embodies the virtues that would become central to Roman identity: courage, determination, and the unyielding pursuit of greatness. It reflects a people who saw themselves as destined to rise from humble beginnings to rule over a world that stretched far beyond their wildest dreams. Roman culture held this myth close to its heart, not just as a story but as a living testament to their values. The tale of the twins was a reminder of the sacrifices required to build something lasting and the strength needed to overcome adversity. It became a symbol of Rome's origins, its struggles, and its ultimate triumphs. For the Romans, Romulus and Remus were not just legendary figures, they were the embodiment of their city's spirit. Their story was recounted with reverence and pride, a reminder of the trials and triumphs that had shaped their people. The myth served as a beacon, guiding the Romans as they built their city into one of the greatest empires the world had ever known. In every stone of Rome, in every tale of its heroes, the spirit of Romulus and Remus lived on. Their story was a powerful reminder of what it meant to be Roman, a legacy of courage, a commitment to greatness, and a deep, unbreakable bond with their city and its values. In the dawn of Rome, where the city's walls were still fresh and the echoes of its early days barely settled, society was taking its first breaths. Life in early Rome was harsh and demanding. Survival was a daily struggle, and every aspect of Roman life was geared towards ensuring the city's endurance and growth. Roman society was built on a foundation of strength, honor, and duty. These values were not just ideals but essential parts of daily life. The Romans saw themselves as fierce warriors, bound by a sense of mission and a desire to build something lasting. In this world, every member of the community had a role to play, and every action had a purpose. Women, in this fledgling society, held a place that was both revered and restricted. They were seen as the heart of the home, responsible for nurturing and raising the next generation. Their roles were centered around family and hearth, and their importance was reflected in their ability to secure the future of their families and, by extension, the city itself. But the importance of women in early Rome was not just a matter of household duties. Their presence was crucial for the city's very survival. A city without women faced a future of decline, for women were the bearers of children, the cornerstone of family life, and thus essential for the city's growth. Without them, Rome's hopes for expansion and stability were as fragile as the delicate threads of early society. When Romulus and his fellow Romans made the decision to abduct the Sabine women, they were driven by a desperate need. Their city was growing, and they needed to ensure its future by bringing women into their midst. It was a choice born out of necessity but carried profound implications. The abduction was not merely a violent act, it was a wrenching upheaval of the Sabine women's lives. Torn from their families and homes, they were thrust into a world that was alien and frightening. Their tears mingled with the dust of their former lives as they were carried away to a city they did not know, surrounded by people they did not trust. For the women, the abduction was a personal tragedy. They were taken from their loved ones, their lives turned upside down in a moment. They faced not only the trauma of separation but the challenge of adapting to a new role in a city that had taken them by force. Their plight was a vivid illustration of the human cost of Rome's survival. Yet, the abduction also highlighted the deep connection between societal needs and individual suffering. The women's forced integration into Roman society was a complex mix of pain and resilience. As they found their place in this new world, their presence began to shape the future of Rome in ways that could not have been foreseen. The Romans, while driven by a need to secure their future, were also forced to confront the consequences of their actions. The women they had taken were not merely prizes of conquest, they were individuals who would play a critical role in the city's development. As time passed, the forced abduction turned into an uneasy integration, where both the Romans and the Sabine women had to navigate the new reality they found themselves in. In early Roman culture, the abduction of the Sabine women became a poignant reminder of the harsh realities of survival. It underscored the sacrifices and moral dilemmas faced by those who sought to build a city from nothing. The women's role in this process was both tragic and vital, marking a significant chapter in the story of Rome's growth. The legend of the Sabine women, woven into the fabric of Rome's early days, reflects the broader truths of a society that valued strength and survival above all else. Their story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the profound impact of each individual's journey on the larger narrative of history. On the hills that rise like ancient sentinels around Rome, there lived a people known as the Sabines. Their land was a mosaic of lush forests and rolling hills, a beautiful yet rugged terrain that had shaped their way of life. The Sabines were more than just neighbors to the Romans, they were a people with a rich heritage and a fierce sense of identity. The Sabine people were known for their strong traditions and their close-knit communities. They lived in small, fortified villages, where life was governed by ancient customs and the wisdom of their elders. Their society was organized into tribes, each with its own leaders and warriors who were deeply connected to their land. The Sabines valued honor and bravery, traits that were woven into their daily lives and their history. For the early Romans, the Sabines were both a challenge and a potential ally. The two peoples shared a border, and their interactions were marked by a mixture of cooperation and conflict. The Sabines were formidable, their warriors skilled and their resolve unyielding. This made them both a threat and a source of fascination for the Romans, who admired their strength and independence. Geographically, the Sabine territory was a crucial piece of the puzzle. Nestled in the Apennine Mountains, their lands were strategically positioned between Rome and other important regions. The mountains provided a natural barrier, making Sabine villages difficult to penetrate but also offering protection. The rugged terrain was both an advantage and a challenge, shaping the Sabines' way of life and their approach to conflict. The political landscape further complicated the relationship between the Sabines and the Romans. Early Rome was a city struggling to establish its identity and secure its place in a region full of rivalries and shifting alliances. The Sabines, with their own tribal politics and ambitions, were not easily swayed by Rome's overtures. Their leaders were cautious, aware of the growing power of the city on their doorstep. Culturally, the Sabines and Romans were distinct but not entirely dissimilar. Both shared some common practices and beliefs, yet their ways of life diverged in significant ways. The Sabines were more traditional, holding tightly to their customs and their ancestral ways. They valued their independence and were wary of Rome's growing influence. The Romans, on the other hand, were in the midst of forging a new identity, driven by ambition and a desire to expand their influence. The tension between the two groups simmered, fueled by a combination of competition and misunderstanding. The Romans, in their quest for growth, saw the Sabines as both a threat and an opportunity. To secure their future, they needed to integrate the Sabine land and people into their own society. The Sabines, in turn, viewed Rome's ambitions with suspicion and resistance. They were determined to protect their way of life and their land from encroachment. The backdrop of this tension was a landscape marked by rugged beauty and a fierce determination to maintain sovereignty. The Sabines were not just neighbors, they were a symbol of resistance and strength. Their role in the unfolding drama of Rome's rise was not one of passive observation but active opposition and resilience. In the end, the conflict with the Sabines was not just a matter of territorial expansion. It was a clash of values and visions, a struggle that highlighted the costs of ambition and the complexities of human relationships. The story of the Sabines and their interactions with Rome is a powerful reminder of the struggles and sacrifices that shape history. The festival was meant to be a celebration, a time of joy and unity. In the early days of Rome, Romulus wanted this festival to showcase the city's new beginnings, to draw people together and display their growing strength. The air was thick with the aroma of roasting meats, and the laughter of Romans mingled with the music of flutes and drums. But beneath the festive surface, a dark plan was unfolding. Romulus, the founder of Rome, faced a dire problem. His city, still small and vulnerable, was thriving but lacked women. The absence of families was a grave threat to Rome's future. With the city's survival at stake, Romulus hatched a plan to address this urgent need. His idea was as bold as it was controversial. He would abduct women from the neighboring Sabine tribe, taking them to be his people's wives. As the festival reached its height, Romulus's plan went into action. The Romans, their faces painted with smiles and excitement, moved with a purpose hidden behind their festive masks. The Sabines, enticed by the promises of celebration and camaraderie, had arrived in Rome, unaware of the grim twist their night would take. When the signal was given, the mood changed abruptly. What began as a night of revelry turned into chaos. Roman men, with hearts pounding and eyes filled with determination, began to seize the Sabine women. The sounds of celebration were replaced by cries of shock and fear. The Sabine women, caught off guard, struggled against the forceful grip of their captors. Their once bright and hopeful faces were now etched with terror. The Romans, driven by desperation and a fierce determination to secure their city's future, acted with ruthless efficiency. Their hearts may have been heavy, but their resolve was unwavering. They dragged the women away from the festival grounds, through streets echoing with the fading sounds of celebration, to a place where the city's future was to be decided. For the Sabine families, the abduction was a nightmare. The joy of the festival turned into a scene of anguish and loss. Fathers, brothers, and husbands rushed to the scene, their cries of distress blending with the clamor of the festival. The Sabines, fierce and proud, were incensed by the betrayal. They had come to Rome with hopes of camaraderie but were met with violence and deceit. The abduction was not just a physical act, but a profound violation of trust. The Sabine women, torn from their homes and families, faced a future that was both uncertain and daunting. The Romans, while seeing the abduction as a necessary step for their city's survival, could not ignore the human cost of their actions. In the aftermath, the reactions from both sides were intense and emotional. The Sabine leaders, enraged by the attack, vowed to seek justice. The news of the abduction spread quickly, igniting a fierce resolve among the Sabine people. They gathered their warriors and prepared to confront the Romans, their hearts burning with a desire to reclaim what had been taken from them. Meanwhile, the Romans faced a mix of triumph and unease. Their city had achieved its immediate goal, but the consequences of their actions were beginning to weigh heavily. The Sabine women, now integrated into Roman life, were both a symbol of the city's growth and a reminder of the price paid for it. The festival, once a symbol of unity and hope, had become a turning point in the history of Rome. The abduction of the Sabine women was a stark reminder of the complexities of human ambition and the deep emotional currents that drive people's actions. As the city braced for the repercussions of its actions, the fate of both the Romans and the Sabines hung in the balance, shaped by the events of that fateful night. The night sky was still echoing with the sounds of the festival when the shocking news reached the Sabine families. Fathers, mothers, and brothers, who had come to Rome in the spirit of celebration, were confronted with a nightmare. Their daughters, sisters, and wives had been torn away from them in an act of violence and deceit. The initial reaction was one of sheer disbelief and horror. The joyous festival they had attended with high hopes and open hearts had turned into a scene of unimaginable grief. The Sabine leaders, once proud and confident, now found themselves facing a crisis that struck at the very heart of their people. They rallied their families, their faces set in grim determination. The loss was not just personal, but a deep wound to their community and honor. In the heart of the Sabine villages, the news of the abduction spread like wildfire. Families gathered in small groups, their voices rising in anguish and anger. Mothers wept for their daughters, whose lives had been upended in an instant. Fathers, driven by a fierce protectiveness, gathered their sons and neighbors, preparing to reclaim what had been stolen from them. The community's sorrow quickly transformed into a unified resolve to seek justice. The Sabine leaders, their faces etched with determination, called for a gathering of their warriors. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming, fueling a resolve that burned with a fiery intensity. They could not allow the abduction to go unanswered. This was more than a mere skirmish, it was a challenge to their dignity and way of life. As the Sabine forces mustered, their preparation for conflict was not just about strategy but also a deeply personal quest for justice. They armed themselves with the weapons of their ancestors, their hearts heavy with the weight of their mission. Every step they took was fueled by the memory of their loved ones, the faces of those who had been taken from them. The Romans, in the aftermath of their actions, faced the harsh reality of their choices. They had achieved their goal of bringing women into their community, but the cost was now laid bare before them. The Sabines, driven by their sense of honor and loss, were ready to strike back. The Romans knew that they had sparked a fierce opposition, and the threat of conflict loomed large over their city. The clash between the Romans and the Sabines was not just a battle of armies, but a collision of deeply held values and emotions. The Sabines fought not only for their abducted kin, but for their honor and way of life. The battlefields became a stage for a struggle that was as much about dignity and survival as it was about land and power. The conflict that ensued was fierce and relentless. The Sabines, motivated by their grief and outrage, fought with a desperation that was palpable. The Romans, caught in the middle of their own ambitions and the consequences of their actions, faced a relentless and determined enemy. The clash of forces was not just a physical battle but a clash of wills, where the emotional stakes were as high as the strategic ones. As the fighting intensified, both sides experienced the profound costs of their conflict. For the Romans, the presence of the Sabine women, now living among them, became a stark reminder of the pain and anger they had caused. For the Sabines, the battle was a quest to reclaim their dignity and restore what had been taken from them. In the end, the reaction of the Sabine families and leaders was a powerful testament to the depth of their emotions and their unwavering resolve. The abduction of the Sabine women had ignited a firestorm of grief, anger, and determination. The conflict that followed was not just a struggle for survival, but a poignant reflection of the human costs of ambition and the quest for justice. The night of the festival had seemed so promising, filled with laughter and music, until it was shattered by terror. For the Sabine women, the abduction was a cruel twist of fate that turned their world upside down in an instant. As they were ripped from their families and carried away by strangers, their screams mingled with the sounds of celebration now turned to chaos. Their abduction was not just a physical act, but a profound emotional trauma. Each woman faced a nightmare of uncertainty and fear as they were brought into a new world, a place that was both alien and intimidating. The vibrant festival that had once seemed a beacon of joy now stood as a haunting memory, replaced by the grim reality of their new circumstances. The Sabine women were thrust into a situation where they had to confront their deepest fears. They were surrounded by strangers, their lives dictated by the whims of their captors. In the midst of their anguish, they faced the daunting task of adapting to their new roles as wives to the Romans. This transition was fraught with pain, as the memories of their homes and families clung to them like shadows in their new surroundings. Despite the horror of their abduction, the Sabine women played an unexpected role in the unfolding events. As days turned into weeks, they began to see the situation from a different perspective. Their initial despair gradually gave way to a complex mix of emotions. The Romans, for their part, were not the faceless oppressors they had first appeared to be. They were people with their own struggles and vulnerabilities, and their city was a place where these women could find a voice. As time passed, the Sabine women found themselves at the heart of a critical turning point. They were not passive victims, but active participants in the drama that unfolded. Their presence in Rome began to shift the dynamics of the conflict. They became symbols of the price of the Romans' ambition and the human cost of their choices. The women's role in the resolution of the conflict was both poignant and powerful. They had been taken by force, but their resilience and strength became a catalyst for change. They were not merely caught in the middle of the clash between the Romans and their families, but were instrumental in bringing about a resolution. Their experiences and voices were a bridge between the two sides, helping to pave the way for understanding and reconciliation. In the midst of the conflict, the Sabine women began to act as mediators. Their pleas for peace and their stories of loss and suffering started to resonate with the Romans. They spoke of their homes, their families, and the pain of separation. Their voices, filled with genuine emotion and anguish, touched the hearts of many Romans, sparking a change in perception. The emotional power of their situation was undeniable. The women's suffering became a powerful reminder of the humanity behind the conflict. Their stories and experiences highlighted the deep connections between people, regardless of their backgrounds. The Sabine women, through their courage and resilience, helped to bridge the gap between the two sides, fostering a sense of empathy and understanding. Their role in resolving the conflict was not just about their personal suffering, but also about their ability to inspire change. The women's presence and their voices helped to bring about a resolution that acknowledged the pain and loss on both sides. They were no longer just symbols of the conflict, but active participants in its resolution, their strength and bravery a testament to their enduring spirit. The Sabine women's journey from victims to mediators was a powerful and emotional chapter in the story of Rome's early days. Their experiences, marked by suffering and resilience, played a crucial role in shaping the outcome of the conflict. Their ability to transform their pain into a force for reconciliation was a testament to their strength and the profound impact they had on the course of history. The clamor of battle and the cries of pain had echoed through the hills and valleys, leaving scars on both the Romans and the Sabines. Yet, amid the fury of conflict and the anguish of loss, a quiet yearning for peace began to emerge. It was in this yearning that hope took root, leading to a moment that would change the course of their shared history. The turning point came not from the battlefield, but from the voices of those most affected by the conflict, the Sabine women. Their presence in Rome, once a symbol of strife, had evolved into a poignant testament to the need for resolution. Their suffering had softened the hearts of many Romans, who began to see beyond the initial act of abduction to the deeper human cost of their actions. The peace talks began with a tentative yet sincere approach. Leaders from both sides, weary from the relentless clash and haunted by the cries of their people, sought a way to end the bloodshed. The negotiations were fraught with tension, but there was a shared realization that the ongoing conflict was draining their strength and spirit. The desire for peace was growing stronger with each passing day. The Sabine women, who had endured so much, became crucial in this process. Their stories and experiences were woven into the fabric of the negotiations. The women spoke of their lost homes and families, of the dreams they had been forced to leave behind. Their words, filled with raw emotion, struck a chord with both Roman and Sabine leaders. They served as living reminders of the human cost of their conflict and the urgent need for reconciliation. As talks progressed, a sense of mutual understanding began to take shape. The Romans, once seen as the oppressors, were now recognized as neighbors with whom the Sabines could share a future. The realization dawned that their fates were intertwined, and that peace was the only path forward. The resolution was not an easy one. It required courage and compromise from both sides. The Romans agreed to recognize the Sabine grievances and to offer restitution for the suffering caused. In return, the Sabines agreed to cease hostilities and to work towards integrating their people with the Romans. The peace agreement was a fragile but hopeful beginning, setting the stage for a new chapter in their shared history. The integration of the Sabine women into Roman society was a process marked by both challenges and breakthroughs. Initially, there was a deep-seated mistrust on both sides. The women, now part of Roman households, faced the difficult task of adapting to their new lives while holding on to the fragments of their past. The Romans, for their part, had to come to terms with the consequences of their actions and find a way to welcome their new neighbors. Over time, the women's strength and resilience began to bridge the gap between the two communities. They took on new roles, not just as wives, but as active participants in their new society. Their presence began to symbolize a future built on shared experiences and mutual respect. The women contributed to the cultural and social fabric of Rome, helping to forge a new identity for the city that was now both Roman and Sabine. The process of reconciliation was gradual. It required patience and understanding as both sides worked through their differences. The pain of the past was acknowledged, but the focus was on building a future together. The Sabine women, with their enduring spirit, played a vital role in this transformation. They became symbols of hope and renewal, showing that even the deepest wounds could heal when faced with empathy and cooperation. As time went on, the integration of the Sabine women became a testament to the power of forgiveness and the strength of human connections. Their stories of struggle and adaptation became part of Rome's narrative, highlighting the resilience of the human spirit. The once bitter conflict gave way to a new era of unity and shared purpose. The resolution of the conflict and the integration of the Sabine women into Roman society was not just about ending a war. It was about acknowledging the pain of the past and working towards a future where both communities could thrive together. The process was a profound reminder of the enduring power of reconciliation and the ability of people to find common ground even in the aftermath of great suffering. The story of the Sabine women and their abduction by the Romans is more than just a tale of conflict. It is a reflection of the struggles and triumphs that define human nature. This ancient myth has left a mark on Roman culture and continues to resonate through history, embodying themes of power, conflict, and integration in ways that stir the soul. The tale's impact on Roman culture was profound. It was not merely a story recounted around the hearth, it became a symbol of the values and tensions that shaped Rome's identity. The legend of the Sabine women served as a stark reminder of the costs of ambition and the necessity of reconciliation. It painted a picture of Rome's early struggles, portraying a city born from both violence and courage. In Roman art and literature, this myth was depicted as both a cautionary tale and a heroic narrative, capturing the complexities of a society that was both brutal and visionary. Throughout history, the myth has been used to reflect on the nature of power and conflict. In the story, the Romans' initial act of abduction was a display of raw power, a forceful assertion of dominance that carried significant emotional and moral weight. The subsequent reconciliation highlighted the transformative power of forgiveness and the necessity of integrating former enemies into a cohesive society. This duality, the clash of might and the potential for peace, echoes through various historical interpretations of the myth, showing how power can both destroy and create. The myth's enduring appeal lies in its ability to convey deep truths about human nature. The Sabine women, caught between their loss and their new reality, became symbols of resilience and adaptation. Their plight and eventual integration into Roman society reflect the broader human experience of navigating conflict and forging new paths amid adversity. This aspect of the myth has been used to explore themes of unity and division, illustrating how societies evolve and adapt through their struggles. Over the centuries, the story has been invoked in various contexts to address contemporary issues. In times of political upheaval, the tale of the Sabine women has been cited as a metaphor for the necessity of compromise and the painful process of coming together after conflict. It has served as a reflection on the human capacity for both cruelty and compassion, highlighting the ways in which societies confront their own failures and strive for redemption. The legacy of the Sabine women's story also extends to its representation in art and literature. Their tale has inspired countless works, from ancient sculptures to modern plays, each interpreting the myth through the lens of its own era. These representations continue to evoke strong emotions, capturing the essence of the human experience in ways that resonate across generations. The story's depiction of intense struggle and eventual reconciliation remains a powerful narrative that speaks to the heart of human resilience and the quest for unity. In educational and cultural discussions, the myth has been used as a powerful example of how historical narratives shape our understanding of morality and social cohesion. It stands as a testament to the complexity of human interactions and the ways in which societies can grow from their most painful experiences. The story of the Sabine women is not just a relic of the past, but a living myth that continues to inspire and provoke thought about the nature of conflict, power, and integration. The emotional depth of the myth, with its themes of loss, courage, and eventual peace, has ensured its place in the annals of cultural history. It remains a poignant reminder of the struggles faced by those who came before us and the lessons they impart. Through its impact on Roman culture and its interpretations over time, the story of the Sabine women endures as a powerful reflection on the human condition, demonstrating the timeless relevance of its themes and the profound ways in which they resonate with our own experiences. In the quiet corners of history, where ancient myths still whisper their secrets, the story of the Sabine women holds a poignant and unsettling resonance. Today, this myth is not just a tale from the past, but a mirror reflecting contemporary issues of gender, power, and societal integration. Its relevance strikes a deep chord, echoing through modern discussions with a haunting intensity. The myth of the Sabine women, once a story of abduction and forced integration, now finds itself at the center of modern reflections on gender and power dynamics. In an era where gender equality and personal autonomy are fiercely debated, the story's themes of abduction and forced assimilation bring uncomfortable questions to the forefront. The women's plight, forcibly removed from their families and thrust into a new society, serves as a stark reminder of the ways in which women's autonomy has historically been compromised by those in power. Today, the myth resonates with contemporary discussions about gender roles and the struggle for equality. The image of the Sabine women, trapped between their old lives and their new roles, touches on the ongoing fight for women's rights and their right to self-determination. Their story is a powerful metaphor for the broader struggles faced by women throughout history and in modern times, where control over one's own life and choices remains a significant issue. In examining the power dynamics depicted in the myth, modern reflections reveal a complex interplay of force and diplomacy. The Romans' initial act of abduction represents the exercise of raw power, while the eventual integration of the Sabine women into Roman society reflects a shift towards a more nuanced understanding of power and reconciliation. This shift is particularly relevant today, as societies grapple with the balance of power, justice, and integration in the face of conflict and division. The emotional weight of the Sabine women's experience, their fear, their displacement, and their eventual acceptance into Roman society mirrors modern concerns about how societies address and rectify past wrongs. The myth's depiction of forced integration and the subsequent search for a shared future speaks to the challenges faced by marginalized groups today as they strive for recognition and acceptance within larger societal frameworks. It raises questions about how societies can heal and move forward after deep-seated conflicts and injustices. In contemporary discussions about mythology, the story of the Sabine women serves as a powerful case study of how ancient narratives can reflect and inform modern values and issues. Myths are not static relics, but living stories that continue to evolve and resonate across time. The Sabine women's story, with its themes of forced change and eventual reconciliation, provides a lens through which modern issues can be examined and understood. It invites reflection on how ancient stories can illuminate current struggles and aspirations. As societies strive for greater understanding and equality, the myth of the Sabine women remains a compelling and emotional reminder of the cost of power and the potential for redemption. It highlights the importance of empathy and the need to address historical injustices in ways that foster genuine reconciliation and integration. The story's relevance today is a testament to its enduring power and its ability to speak to the heart of contemporary issues with a profound and evocative resonance.